Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, depending on where in the world you are joining me from. I am Illuminati, and this is the Crypto and Cognac podcast show, as always, live every Thursday, 7 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, sharp, right here on YouTube. This is episode 24, season 6. And today we are talking the Genius Act, right? And you know, us here in the Caribbean, we do lime dry mouth. So wherever I am, wherever I am, Hennessy there, right? Guys, shout out to everybody in the chit chat. Pour yourself a drink. Too much, too little bit, and let's get into it. As always, thank you very much for being with me. Cheers. And before we get into the meat of the matter, as always, housekeeping. This is not a financial advisory podcast. I am not a financial advisor. Nothing that I share here this evening, last evening, or any evening to come should be misconstrued as being financial advice. You see these rocks in this glass? The same way we have our yak is the same way we have our crypto chats, right? On the rocks, ice rule, information, conversation, education. Yes? So, last week, while we were talking war, panicking about war, stressing about war, we still a little bit stressed, a little bit less so, while the markets were going crazy, while everybody was reacting to what was happening in the Middle East. Something was happening in Washington that has both Washington, D.C. and Wall Street chatting, right? And that was the passing of the Genius Act, right? And this is a newly, newly passed legislation that could potentially reshape the way stable coins are treated in the US and by extension, the world. Because you know, if the US sneeze, the world catches a cold. So pour yourself a drink and let's get into it. The Genius Act. Why the Genius Act? Is it that somebody trying to be smart? No, it is actually an acronym. To me, the acronym doesn't really execute on the spelling, but I'm not trying to be picky, right? So it means guaranteeing and ensuring national uniformity in stable coins, right? So technically the U and the I on the wrong side, but that's what it stands for. And it was passed in Congress in the United States in 2025 with bipartisan support. So both sides of the aisle, the Republicans and the Democrats, agreed to what was proposed in the act and they passed it, right? What does it speak to? It requires full reserve backing of stablecoins, mandatory third-party audits, clear licensure with federal and state banking regulators, and they threw out the idea that you can be qualified for this as an algorithmic stablecoin. Now, why? We're going to talk about that a little bit, because that's kind of what spearheaded this whole process in the first place. So what does this mean? It means that people like Tether, Circle, and any other new coins now have a clear rule book in terms of how to operate in the US around stablecoins. There is no longer a legal gray zone. Is this good news? Maybe. Is it bad news? Maybe. Where we at with it? I guess time will tell. But for the most part, at least we're moving forward, right? Terra Luna. All you remember that? If you was here during Terra Luna and you're still here, congratulations, sir. You are an experienced cryptographer, right? Not in the traditional sense, right? Not in the exact definition of cryptographer, but you've been in cryptocurrency long enough. You've been through one of the worst events and you're still here, right? So congratulations to you. You have survived, right? Maybe some PTSD, as all people who go to war have, but you're still here. Now, after the FTX fallout and the total-ish show that was the Terra Luna algorithmic stable coin collapse, the wheels started turning that eventually has brought us here to the Genius Act, right? One of the things, as we continue to see greater institutional adoption of crypto, and we all know that stablecoins are a key part of transitioning into the more volatile crypto space, or parking your wins or parking your funds until you enter the crypto space. And as more institutional players get involved, especially the banks have had significant fears about crypto market contagion, meaning that any fallout from the crypto space could impact them as they start to get involved in the space, right? So they wanted to make sure that something was being done to protect them from this potential contagion. Obviously, the US Treasury has been worried for a while about US dollar dominance, and they want to ensure that the US dollar continues to dominate, especially in a digital world, and they want to make sure that they control that dominance in the digital space, and they have some level of leverage over their digital competitors, right? Now, if we go back, our good friend, Senator Elizabeth Warren, she has always stated that stablecoins represent a systemic risk if left unregulated. That's a direct quote, right? She believes, yes, crypto in general, but stablecoins particularly pose a systemic risk. And maybe not, but all of those narratives are part of what had brought us to where we are today in terms of the Genius Act. Now, is this just about crypto, or is it about global finance, sovereignty? Is it about the US wanting to keep the US currency, the dominant currency in the globe, even in cyberspace? Is this a new parallel system that is meant to continue the US dominance as compared to a CBDC, which was and continues to be rejected from what's the right word? From a holistic approach. Like generally the whole crypto space has been like, nah, we're not doing CBDCs. So is this just another way of keeping that US dominance, that US control, without introducing CBDCs specifically? Now, who are the potential winners and losers based on the current act. Immediately, Circle is somewhere around 80% compliant already, day one. So will they win out the battle between the two big guns, Circle and USDT? Are we going to see traditional banks move into the stablecoin space? We already see that President Trump and his business ventures are venturing into the stablecoin space. Are we going to see more innovation in the stablecoin space, or is this going to actually slow down innovation in the stablecoin space because of all these rules? People like Tether, who have largely been seen as having some obscure reserve system, are they in big trouble now? Well, we know algorithmic stablecoins, they've said, unless you pass certain tests, you're not going to be allowed to participate. Are those dead on arrival? If anybody was working on an algorithmic stablecoin, is that business model totally shot to hell? Or are we going to see somewhat of a shadow banking system where we have US regulated stablecoins that are allowed in US territories and US compliant territories, and then we're going to see the rest of the world stablecoins? Or are we going to see the rise of stablecoins backed by other currencies, right? What does this mean, right? Obviously, nothing in crypto happens without its share of controversies. A lot of people have said this favors big banks, it stifles innovation. This is, like I said, another overreach for federal regulators. And it, like I just was talking about, it may create a two-tier system, US compliant versus global stablecoins. How do we then, in a decentralized environment, manage non-compliant stablecoins with US compliant stablecoins? Does holding non-compliant stablecoins put your US compliant stablecoins that are held in the same wallet at risk, right? Because they might decide that, you know what, if you commingle these, that US backed stablecoin is dead, because they can shut that off, right? They can introduce controls that allow for these US regulated stablecoins to be turned off at maybe the government's will, maybe the regulators' whim. We don't know. Now, obviously, the US is a big player in global financial markets. They are trendsetters. What does that mean for global regulators? Are we going to see global regulators like MiCA in Europe follow the model and introduce legislation similar to the Genius Act? Are we going to see it here in the Caribbean, right? Are we going to see innovation around stablecoins flee outside of the US, right? To Dubai, Hong Kong, some of the other areas that are building themselves up as crypto-friendly zones. And while this seems to be an alternative to stablecoins, is this more of a, where's the word I'm looking for? There's a word I'm looking for, but I'm having a brain fart. Is this a gateway drug to CBDCs? Are regulated US regulated stablecoins a gateway drug to ultimately CBDC control, right? And is the Genius Act the first shot in a global stablecoin Cold War? because just like, you know, what we're talking about, just like what led to the conflict last week, this whole idea of nuclear weapons, it feels like whenever a superpower starts moving in one particular area, financial, arms, or otherwise, everybody else feels like, you know what, we need to get going too. So does this now set off a chain reaction to where other global powers start supporting, introducing their own legislation to incentivize stable coins in their own currencies? I think we have to wait and see, of course. But I think what it comes down to, and I'm going to leave you all with this. I'm going to introduce a new segment into the podcast. I'm going to call it the final pour, right? Which is my final thoughts, right? And sometimes it's going to be my thoughts. Sometimes it's going to be a question that I leave you guys with. And my final pour for this evening is the Genius Act a regulatory masterstroke by the US? Or is it a death sentence for innovation around stablecoins and the stablecoin market? Only time can tell. And that's my time for this evening. So guys, thank you as always for joining me. Cheers. You know what I say every week? I don't think I said it last week because we were talking about more important things, but adoption is inevitable. Remember, educate yourself. The information is free. Do your own research. Don't take anybody's word for granted, especially in this space. Please do your own research. Adoption is inevitable. 𝐿luminati out. Guys, be blessed. See you all next Thursday. Have a safe weekend. Be blessed. Be blessed. Be blessed. Cheers.